absolute First Amendment free speech advocate, but that said, you have to have a little common sense. Choosing that song and a couple of the other songs, anti-war songs, what a mistake. It's Veterans Day. And then Eminem coming out saying, dropping the F-bomb 12 times, including twice as he's introed, his first words out of his mouth. Come on, guys, common sense. These are heroes. Kids are watching this. HBO showed it. There was probably millions of young people watching. Bad timing.
I love people who knee-jerk. I do. It has to be my favorite thing when it comes to covering and talking about news and the issues of the day. And the reason behind it is simple. Sitting back and waiting for people locked and loaded with an agenda and thus completely unable to see anything save for their side of an issue, leading to the inevitable knee-jerk, it's easy, it's entertaining. Easy because we're jam-packed with verbal meanderings and motor mouths who are so dedicated to saying something without the first electrical snap of a cogent thought, watching and listening to them bumble and stumble over themselves, seeking to make sense of the nonsensical, is the greatest form of free comedy we have today. Better than a Kardashian body part where the brains are definitely stored. You get my meaning? Nothing is more entertaining. Which brings me to these comments and plenty of those that have followed the Veterans Day concert, featuring legendary musicians such as Bruce Springsteen and the third-rate, washed-up, foul-mouthed rapper trying to cash a few more checks thanks to the suckers who buy into it. First, let's dispense with the flash and trash spitballing of Marshall Mathers, otherwise known as Eminem, otherwise known as the reason why we fear for the future, because there are still those who see him as slightly more talented than a doorknob. His wanton spew of four-letter words was certainly to be expected. After all, HBO hired him because they wanted that edgier young sound for the demographics. What they got was a 4 on the IQ Richter scale. What he did was certainly insulting, derogatory, unnecessary, and a slap in the face to veterans of all ages and their families. See, that's not the knee-jerk. Try to hammer away at Springsteen for being unpatriotic by bringing to the stage a song he has done plenty of times in concert and chose here for obvious reasons. That's what the knee-jerk knuckleheads of the world would rather focus on? Seriously? We apologize for the fact you were only able to hear one track of that audio and were not able to hear the actual words of the song, but trust me, you can go back and look them up anytime. The song Fortunate Son was written and released by John Fogerty in 1969, a time in America when for the first time in our history, we were watching and hearing about our young soldiers coming home in body bags and caskets. America was wrapped in a war they never should have been involved in, certainly not to the level it reached at the end, and the majority of Americans were screaming, even begging, to get out of Southeast Asia and stop the killing. Someone must have understood the meaning behind those words, because the song was added to the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress for being, and I quote, culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In other words, it is a national treasure for what it stands for. The song was not only appropriate for the event, but the words are in no way an insult to any veteran or anyone who has served this country. It criticizes overly patriotic behavior and those who support the use of military force without having to pay the costs themselves, either in money or by serving. It rails against those who use their standing to avoid being part of the military and doing what is necessary to keep this country free. I have yet to speak with one veteran who was insulted by that song, and I've asked plenty. Once they have experienced the horrors of war, they understand that one does not want to be or need to be pro-war in order to be patriotic. And one can question everything about what we're doing and why we're doing it without being slammed by some knee-jerk media third-rate hack only seeking to make a name for themselves by saying something so incredibly vapid we cannot avoid to mention them by name. But we will. I wonder how many of those who criticize the boss for performing that song would ever have the guts to volunteer to change places with any of those veterans in attendance that night, those who come home in pieces, or those who come home in a box, and who to this day consider themselves fortunate sons to have served their country. And that is telling it like it is. The next hour here on MidPoint, the amnesty debate goes head-to-head from ground level, defusing the looming disaster that could be Ferguson, and why Scott Walker is nowhere near ready to become president. That and so much more when we continue right here on MidPoint, the Monday edition, where every day we question absolutely everything. Stay with us.